After 15 long years, this millionaire discovered an amazing love with a surprising cleaning lady. William sat in his grand dining room, the silence echoing against the lavish chandelier that hung like a forgotten dream overhead. The laughter of the family he once yearned for felt like a distant melody, one that had long faded into obscurity. At 45, he owned a tech empire, filled with awards that glistened on the walls, but inside, he was an empty man. Each accolade screamed with hollow triumph while the weight of his estrangement from his family gnawed at him. Here he was, a billionaire, yet utterly alone, drowning in the enormity of his opulent home that offered no warmth, no connection, just a cruel reminder of choices made. The moment Sarah entered his life, the flow of dusty monotony shifted. She was a cleaning lady, fierce and resilient, battling her own demons after her husband abandoned her. Each interaction sparked curiosity, with her vibrant spirit casting a light on his carefully constructed shadow. He felt inexplicably drawn to this woman, whose sorrows mirrored his own in ways he hadn't anticipated. What was he doing? Surely, a man of his stature shouldn't befriend someone from a far chillier world. But each day, as they exchanged guarded smiles, he sensed the stirrings of something profound. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue, but as whispers of their friendship began to ripple within his elite circle, a storm of judgment brewed. Doubts clouded his mind, gnawing at the edges of his resolve. Was this an undeniable connection, or merely a fleeting escape from his gilded cage? He was torn. Should he embrace this untouched bond that simmered with possibility, or retreat back into the safety of his affluent world? Each moment spent with Sarah felt like stepping outside the walls that had trapped him, yet also threatened to obliterate the platforms upon which he had built his life. Then news shattered his fragile equilibrium. His estranged mother was gravely ill. The call from the hospital sent his heart racing, each beat echoing a bitter truth. He could feel pressure mounting, friends urging him toward corporate milestones, while societal expectations warred against the debt of loyalty to family. To pursue success or reconcile with his past. The anguish tightened around him like a noose. He could feel Sarah's unwavering spirit pushing him, but he hesitated to violate the preconceptions that defined his status. As he navigated this crumbling emotional landscape, William felt trapped. He desired to move toward honesty, toward feeling, yet fear gripped him. What would this new love, this powerful, forbidden connection cost him? The tension coiled tighter, and he could barely breathe. With every heartbeat, the weight of sacrifice pressed down, leaving him unsure if he could ever break free of a facade that had defined him for so long. As they prepared to unveil their plans, a new possibility to bridge their worlds, he stood at a precipice, grappling with the uncertain choice between glittering success and the genuine warmth of belonging. The question loomed: could he relinquish everything he had once valued to chase a love that dared to transcend his harsh reality? The hospital room smelled sterile, each breath a reminder of mortality that encroached upon his carefully curated existence. William stood at the threshold, the grief of unspoken words clashing violently with the pride that had long shielded him from vulnerability. His mother, once a towering figure in his life, lay frail and diminished, the 4 lines snaking into her arm like an insidious reminder of the fragility of life. All those years of silence echoed in his mind, a cacophony of missed opportunities and harsh truths. He had chosen ambition over family, and the realization hit him like a tidal wave. Had it truly been worth it? He approached her bed, caution mixed with longing, desperately searching for a connection he had thought forever severed. As he took her hand, thin and cool, he felt the rush of emotions he had long buried. Regret surged through him like a storm, making him question his choices. What business did he have feeling this way when he had abandoned her all these years? "William," she whispered, her voice a fragile thread barely keeping them tethered to the moment. "I was afraid you wouldn't come." He struggled to respond, the knot in his throat tightening even more. I didn't know how," he finally managed, the admission wrapping around him like a cold blanket. The frustration, the resentment, stemmed not from his mother but from himself. How had he let it come to this? In the following days, William made frequent trips to the hospital, and with each visit, layers of hurt and misunderstanding began to peel away. Their awkward conversations started becoming deeper, revealing old wounds and old dreams. In those quiet hours, an unexpected realization dawned upon him, a stark contrast to the mimetic wealth and hollow victories he had chased for so long. Each encounter with his mother reinforced the notion that reconciliation may not come easy. There were stories to be shared, truths that needed to be reckoned with. A decade and a half of silence could not be absolved simply with conversation, but he was starting to understand that this was the first step toward healing. Yet, even as he explored this new territory of emotional intimacy with her, visions of Sarah lingered in the corners of his mind. Her laughter, her strength, and her indomitable spirit beckoned him from the shadows, daring him to consider the unimaginable. Could he dare to tread back into the richness of life beyond his solitude? In a moment of clarity, William picked up his phone, dialing Sarah's number with a renewed sense of urgency. He had been drifting through the treacherous waters of his past, but it was time to confront his present. He didn't want to miss the opportunity to embrace the possibility of love, no matter the potential fallout from his peers or the judgment he feared. "Hey, Sarah," he said, forcing calm into his voice, though his heart raced. "Can we talk?" The line crackled, and a pause grew between them, heavy with anticipation and trepidation. "Of course," she finally replied, the warmth in her voice coaxing him forward. "Is everything okay?" He hesitated, caught in the web of his fractured world. But the overwhelming urge to reach out for connection propelled him. No, but it could get better. He could feel the dawning realization that he was not just seeking solace but a partner, someone who could walk beside him into unknown territory. Yet within that potential lay a poignant question: could he risk showing his true self to Sarah, a reflection of everyone he had avoided being? The door to his new journey was opening, but would he cross the threshold, or would doubt cage him once again? The hospital's fluorescent lights flickered overhead, resembling the uncertainty that continued to swirl within William. Each day spent at his mother's bedside peeled back layers of his once untouchable armor, revealing a raw core he had never allowed anyone to see. He had always prided himself on his self-sufficiency, his relentless drive to succeed in a world where weakness equated to failure. But now, as he watched the woman who had nurtured him, the walls he had constructed began to tremble under the weight of unspoken words and feelings. "Will you tell me about your life, William?" she asked one afternoon, her voice barely above a whisper. The question struck him, not as a request, but as an invitation, a challenge. For years, he had been the architect of a life framed by accolades and milestones, yet he had treated intimacy like a foreign concept. Could he lay bare the mosaic of his existence without fear of judgment? "I've been busy. You know how it is," he deflected, but her clear gaze urged him to push beyond the facade. "Busy with what? What matters more? Success or family?" The simple question cracked the foundation of his defenses, prompting a deep well of anxieties to rise. For what felt like hours, he struggled with the truth. He had often confused his professional triumphs with personal fulfillment, but now busy felt like a curse rather than a badge of honor. He wanted to share, but words stuck in his throat like stones. "I thought achievements would make me happy. I thought it would make you proud," he finally revealed, each confession heavier than the last. A ghost of a smile formed on her lips. "And did it?" He hesitated, the silence expanding between them like an insurmountable chasm. "I don't know," he admitted at last, the tension rising again like a tide. The days that followed became a crucible for William. He wrestled not only with his mother's impending mortality but with the realization that every conversation, every shared laugh and tear, revealed fragments of himself he had long buried. With each visit, glimpses of a new clarity emerged, one that made him question the life he had built. As he drove home, William turned the radio down, the silence a cocoon around him. It was time to confront not just the past but the future. He dialed Sarah's number again, the contact familiar yet fraught with uncertainty. "Hi," she answered, her voice soothing but tinged with curiosity. "You okay? What if I told you I'm ready to show you my real self?" He replied without preamble, his heart racing. A pause followed, filled with the unvoiced implications of his revelation. "What do you mean?" she asked, her tone laced with intrigue, yet cautioning him against the depth of his words. "I've spent so much time hiding behind my accomplishments. It's time I let someone in. Time I let you in." From the other end, he could almost feel her processing his vulnerability, the silence amplifying everything left unspoken. The potential for connection invigorated him, yet shadowed by the specter of his own fear, wondering if he could truly live an authentic life. "Okay," she replied finally. "Can we meet? I want to understand this new, you." William's breath hitched. Their conversation had the weight of a decision, one that could unravel every careful plan he had constructed. He agreed, the finality of the arrangement both exhilarating and terrifying. As he hung up, a wave of determination surged through him, accompanied by the gnawing fear of exposure. There was no turning back, he was crossing a threshold into a realm fraught with uncertainties. But looming beneath this newfound resolve was a truth he had yet to confront. Could he truly embrace love and connection, a genuine partnership, if he couldn't forgive himself for the past? With each question spiraling in his mind, a fresh urgency pushed him forward. The path to vulnerability beckoned, and as he stood on the brink, he felt the pull of possibility guiding him. The moment of reckoning was approaching, and the weight of his buried truths would soon collide with the opportunity for transformation. Would he break free from the chains of regret, or would he falter yet again? The sun dipped below the horizon as William pulled into the familiar parking lot of the cafe where he had first met Sarah, a quaint little place adorned with vibrant flowers and inviting patio lights. The air buzzed with the murmur of conversations, laughter piercing through the twilight. Anxiety twisted in his gut, turning excitement into apprehension. He grasped the steering wheel tightly, focusing on the cool metal to quell the rising tide of doubt. Stepping out of the car, it struck him how much he was risking by exposing his true self. Each step toward the cafe was a step away from the self-image he had cultivated over the years. The strides grew heavier, burdened by the anticipation of what lay ahead. When he entered, the scent of freshly brewed coffee enveloped him, grounding him momentarily. He spotted Sarah sitting at a corner table, her expression brightening as she caught sight of him. "Hey," she greeted, her warmth striking a stark contrast to his internal turmoil. "Hi," he replied, forcing a smile that felt forced, artificial. A few minutes passed in polite conversation, small talk that felt inadequate compared to the weight of what he wanted to reveal. William could sense the tension simmering beneath the surface, each sentence bouncing him closer to the precipice of honesty. It wasn't the chatter that consumed his thoughts, but the nagging urge to dig deeper, to unearth the buried parts of himself that had long been hidden. "Is everything okay?" she finally probed, her eyes focused on him, searching. As the words slipped past his lips, they shattered the carefully maintained silence. "I've been hiding from you, Sarah. Hiding behind my successes and achievements." The color drained from her face, but only for a moment. "What do you mean?" "I've relied on my accomplishments as a shield, a way to protect myself from real connection, real feelings. But being with you has made me realize how important it is to be genuine." Her expression softened, and the air seemed to adjust, fine-tuning to his admission. "William, you know that you don't have to put on a show for me, right?" "Do I?" he countered, his voice thickening. "I've learned to equate my worth with my career, convinced that showing who I truly am would weaken me. But I don't want that anymore. I want to be honest about my fears, my struggles." "That's brave," she said, leaning forward. "But it's also okay to be imperfect. We all have things we're working through." Her words reached into his chest, unearthing a mixture of relief and regret. There was a truth in vulnerability that resonated. How many opportunities had he closed off, afraid of what authenticity might cost him? William had spent years crafting an identity that was built on performance, yet in this moment, he recognized that vulnerability was the real strength he longed for. It wasn't just about revealing himself to Sarah, it was about setting himself free from the expectations that had shackled him. What if I told you I fear not being enough? That sometimes I feel like a fraud wearing a mask of success. He confessed, his voice trembling slightly. Then we'd both be here together, honestly, she offered, a soothing balm to his fraying nerves. In that shared moment of revelation, William began to dismantle the fortress he had so meticulously built. The urgency to find authenticity clashed with the lingering specter of self-doubt, igniting a tension that propelled him forward. But beneath the surface stirred another conflict. He felt unprepared to fully embrace this new connection. With every layer he shed, he became increasingly aware of how much of his past still haunted him. As they sipped their coffee in a shared silence, he contemplated the gravity of his unfolding journey. Would the shadows of his past continue to inhibit his transformation? Was he truly ready to embrace everything that lay just beyond the threshold of his comfort zone? The questions trailed behind him like ghosts, urging him onward. William felt the ground shift under his feet, and with each breath, the prospect of deeper connection illuminated the dim corners of his heart. But as he glanced at Sarah, her encouraging smile igniting something within him, the next challenge loomed on the horizon. What would happen when he faced the specter of his past, his emotional barriers that had kept love at bay? The thought hung heavy in the air, propelling him toward the inevitable confrontation that awaited him. The cafe's ambient noise faded into a distant hum as William's thoughts churned. A raw vulnerability coursed through him, intertwining with a burgeoning realization that something fundamental needed to change. The connection he felt with Sarah was electrifying. It showed him that authentic relationships demanded sincerity, a currency he had hoarded for too long. As the conversation lulled momentarily, an uncharacteristic impulse seized him. "Can we change where this conversation is going?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper yet piercing through the haze of uncertainty. Sarah tilted her head in intrigue, urging him to continue. "Let us talk about the past, about what I've locked away," he urged. Each word felt like a step into the unknown. "I think it's the only way I can truly move forward." She nodded gently, encouragement evident in her warm gaze. The demons of his past were numerous, years of inadequacy, of feeling trapped in a successful shell that rarely revealed the fragility inside. "I grew up in a small town," he began, drawing upon memories that clung like cobwebs. "I was never the star student. I was always in the shadow of more talented peers." He paused, recounting how a formative event, a teacher's dismissive remark, had solidified his drive for success but left scars beneath the surface. "That statement haunted me. Every time I was praised at work, I felt like an imposter because I couldn't shake the feeling that I didn't deserve it. It was as if I had built a reputation on shaky ground." His self-assessment poured out, raw and unfiltered. "William, look at what you've accomplished despite that." "It's a testament to your strength," Sarah interjected, a reassuring smile gracing her lips. "Yes, but at what cost?" His frustration bubbled just beneath the surface. "I chased after accolades to mask my insecurities, to shield myself from questions I feared. I avoided dealing with those feelings." As he spoke, memories flooded back, instances of both success and isolation. Ultimately, he faced a profound realization: while he accumulated achievements, he neglected the essential truths of himself. The weight of his confession hung in the air, and he watched as Sarah absorbed his words, her expression a mixture of compassion and understanding. Yet he felt an electrifying apprehension building within him. What would be the consequences of this revelation? Would it drive her away? Suddenly, a thought struck him mercilessly. "What if you discover that I'm not the man you think I am?" His voice trembled with fear. The admission felt like exposing a wound that had never quite healed. "William, I'm not looking for perfection. I'm looking for someone who's willing to be real," she responded, her sincerity soothing his fraying nerves, but still, his heart raced. The room felt charged with an unspoken understanding as William reflected on their shared intimacy. The instinct to hide his flaws was deep-rooted, stemming from years of conditioning. Could he genuinely let go of that need? Taking a calculated breath, he continued, "It's terrifying to think about how much I've hidden and how vulnerable I feel in this space." His pulse quickened. This conversation required an escalating level of honesty. "Then let us confront it together," Sarah offered. Her willingness to explore the depths of his emotional landscape illuminated a path he hadn't considered before. In that brief moment, a flicker of hope surged inside William. The possibility of rebuilding his perception of worth beyond success and recognition began taking form. Yet, a darker thought shadowed him: were some scars too deep to heal? Would he be able to navigate through painful memories to fully embrace this burgeoning connection? The coffee in front of them had turned cold, but he hardly noticed. In that charged silence, he felt the daunting urgency of his journey forward, aware that confronting his past could either break him or set him free. As if reading his thoughts, Sarah leaned closer. "Let us keep talking about this. You don't have to face it alone." Her effort to understand drew him closer, yet doubt echoed persistently in his mind. Could he truly let her in? The stakes of his revelation loomed large, urging him to confront who he was versus who he wanted to become, and to consider how far he was willing to go to bridge that gap. Just as confidence began to settle amid the uncertainty, another question emerged: was he prepared to share the most harrowing episodes of his past, the ones that challenged not just his sense of self but also the vision of who he hoped to be in Sarah's eyes? The intensity of the moment left them both suspended in anticipation, each heartbeat echoing with the promise of revelation, as the shadows of his past threatened to intertwine once more, demanding resolution. William felt suspended between two worlds: the fragile safety of his carefully constructed present and the weighty, tumultuous shadows of his past. As Sarah's gaze lingered on him, he grappled with the enormity of the moment. The walls he built around himself had a purpose: protection from a world that might not accept the intricacies of his true self. "I think," he said slowly, gathering his thoughts, "it all comes back to that day in high school." The words felt like stones dropping into still water, creating ripples that spread through the tension in the air. "The time my art was criticized so harshly by Mr. Hall. It felt as if he took a knife and carved away something fundamental in my spirit." Sarah nodded, the softness of her expression inviting him to go deeper. "You've mentioned him before. How did it shape you?" "He called my work forgettable. And at that moment, I realized the power his words held over me. Instead of pursuing my passion for creativity, I buried it beneath ambitious pursuits in business, convinced success would fill that void." Each syllable felt like peeling away layers of paint to reveal a canvas he had covered in doubt. "But the truth is," he continued, his voice thickening, "the more success I chased, the emptier I felt. My accolades felt like quicksand, pulling me deeper into isolation. I was stuck in a loop of validation without ever feeling fulfilled, always wanting more yet never knowing what more actually meant for me." "William," Sarah leaned in, her voice a soothing balm against his mounting unrest. "What do you love? What ignites your spirit?" The question struck him, igniting a flicker in the dark corners of his mind. He hesitated, realizing how disconnected he had become from what truly brought him joy. "I used to love painting," he confessed, the words tumbling out almost reluctantly. Splatters of color felt like honesty on canvas. "But I haven't touched a brush in years. I'm afraid to fail." "Maybe," she suggested, "it's time to paint again. Not just to revisit those passions but to confront those fears. Could that help you break through?" A surge of possibility flickered in his chest. It felt both liberating and terrifying. The thought of resurrecting that abandoned part of himself created both excitement and dread. What if he explored a realm where success wasn't measured by accolades alone but by sincerity and authentic expression? But as quickly as the spark ignited, doubt crept back in. What if it's too late for me? What if I'm out of practice? It feels safer to stick to what I know: business, money, metrics. Sarah cut through his spiraling thoughts with intensity. What if those metrics mean nothing to you in the end? You deserve to embrace what fuels you, not shackles you. He shifted in the cafe chair, feeling the weight of those words entwined with his anxiety. Could he truly allow himself that kind of freedom? What would it mean for his meticulously maintained identity? The intensity of their conversation hung like smoke in the air, thick with potential yet laden with apprehension. "I want to break from these chains," he finally admitted, his voice laced with newfound resolve. But could he translate that desire into action? "Then you start today," she encouraged, determination shining in her eyes. "Take that first step, envision that canvas and paint something true to your heart." In that moment, he felt a fragile thread of hope emerge, threading its way through his fear. The realization that he had the capacity to evolve hovered palpably. Yet, beneath that promise lingered the haunting remnants of his past choices, urging him to confront them head-on. But what if every brushstroke peeled back layers he wasn't ready to unveil? A visceral fear tightened in his chest. He needed to reckon not only with his art but with the person who would wield the brush again. Then, a thought crystallized amid the chaos. What if sharing that part of myself with you, letting you witness my fragility, could be the very thing that set me free? As he caught Sarah's steady gaze, he sensed both a challenge and an encouragement within. It, solidifying his commitment. The stakes were higher than he had anticipated, and now, with clarity dawning, he realized the real question loomed larger than any before: am I willing to risk everything I've built to discover who I could truly be? The cafe faded around him, the noise blending into a backdrop of stillness as he braced himself for the leap. The journey ahead wasn't merely about reclaiming his lost passions, it demanded a confrontation with every scar he had buried. And as he prepared to confront those shadows, his heart raced at the thought: what if, to make peace with his past, he had to face the very memories he feared most? The days that followed were shrouded in a haze of anticipation and trepidation. William found himself waking early, the sun's faint glow casting shadows across the walls of his studio apartment. He took a deep breath, the air thick with a mix of fear and exhilaration. Yesterday's conversation with Sarah lingered like an echo, each word serving both as a guiding light and a daunting challenge. In the quiet of his kitchen, he prepared a simple breakfast, but his mind was anywhere but on the eggs sizzling in the pan. The idea of reclaiming his brush, of embracing the artist that had slumbered within him, seemed both liberating and dangerous. What if he failed? What if the years of neglect rendered him incapable of creating anything worthwhile? He flipped the eggs absently, his mind teetering between the comforts of his safe, predictable life and the alluring chaos of artistic expression. With every livid splash of yellow spilling onto the plate, he envisioned vibrant strokes of paint on canvas, a bright red here, a deep blue there. They filled his thoughts, yet simultaneously evoked the dark tones of self-doubt. That evening, armed with half-formed ideas, he stood before a blank canvas, the weight of it pressing down on him. Each empty inch felt like an accusation, whispering that he was out of practice, a fraud merely playing at artistry. He glanced around, looking for assurance in the room filled with reminders of financial success, trophies from competitions, framed diplomas, certificates of achievement that seemed to mock his fledgling ambitions. Was it foolish to start again? An impetuous fantasy that would rip apart the careful fabric of his established life? But as the doubt swirled, a fragment of courage blossomed. He recalled Sarah's words, her unwavering belief in the importance of authenticity. What if he allowed himself the chance to explore, to fail, to uncover? With trembling hands, he dipped a brush into a pot of paint, the first physical connection to that abandoned love. The brush hovered above the canvas, as if considering its plunge. He held his breath, bracing against the rush of emotions that rose within him. Then, with a decisive flick, he let the bristles kiss the surface. Splash! A crimson streak zipped across the blankness. The moment felt electric. The action birthed a flicker of joy that he had not experienced in years. He layered color upon color, driven by an instinct unfettered by any demand for perfection. The strokes became frantic, but they were genuine. The canvas transformed into a chaotic symphony of colors, each representing fragmented emotions he had numbed for too long. Hours slipped away unnoticed, lost in the realm of creation. And as he painted, he felt walls within him cracking, unveiling a part of himself that craved expression beyond commodities and metrics. The atmosphere in the studio filled with a tangible sense of release, and each stroke became a cathartic confrontation with the pain and doubts that had shadowed him for years. Yet, amid the exhilaration, unease trailed close behind. The painting, magnificent yet raw, exposed vulnerabilities he had long concealed. What if it was too much? What if this rawness drew judgment? Stripping layers and revealing the depths of his insecurities felt like a risk too profound to fathom. He stepped back, staring at his creation. It was beautiful, chaotic, and startlingly honest. In those swirls of color, he saw himself flawed yet vibrant, caught in a perpetual dance between fear and authenticity. It didn't just reflect his past, it illuminated his potential. As his heart swelled with burgeoning pride, a new question surfaced, deeper than the fears he had faced: how would the world respond to this unrefined version of him? Would it celebrate, critique, or even reject what he had revealed? In that moment of realization, he understood he could not shield himself from the reactions of others any longer. To embrace art fully meant stepping into the light, as vulnerable and naked as the canvas had once been. Perhaps, in revealing that vulnerability, he would find profound acceptance not just from the world, but within himself. He reached for the phone, his fingers hovering hesitantly above the screen. Should he share his work with Sarah, inviting her further into the crucible of his transformation? It shook him, the thought of inviting her to see both his triumph and trial. Would she understand? The urgency to connect, to share, surged within him. As he finally sent the message, he felt a rush of anticipation mixed with anxiety. He knew he was crossing an invisible line, stepping toward a future that could reshape everything he believed about himself, and as he pressed send, his heart raced at the thought: what awaited him when Sarah saw the real William, the artist, the man, and all his complexities? William paced the studio as he waited for Sarah's response, the vibrant painting looming behind him. Each brushstroke, though exhilarating, felt like a beacon drawing scrutiny. He was an artist in the process of reclamation, yet that freedom was tinged with the fear of exposure. He grabbed his phone again, not out of impatience but to anchor himself in the moment. The act of sending the message had shifted more than just his artistic path, it had cracked open a door to vulnerability he had long kept shut. What would she think? Would she praise him, or would that flicker of admiration quickly extinguish in the face of critique? Moments dragged on, stretching into an eternity. Each second without a reply intensified his anxiety, as flashes of self-doubt spiraled in his mind. He tried to distract himself by contemplating another painting. What would be the next layer? Could he dig deeper, push the boundaries of his expression? Instead, he found himself second-guessing the first creation. Perhaps the choice of colors was too bold, too raw. What if he was just another mediocre artist trying to mask his inadequacies with flamboyant paint? Each thought rattled him like a gavel in a courtroom, proclaiming guilt before he'd even faced a jury. Then, an alert pinged. Sarah's message cropped up on the screen, and he felt a rush of adrenaline stuck in his throat. He could barely focus through the haze of anticipation as he read her words. "I can't wait to see it. Can I come over soon?" There was warmth in her reply, tempered with an undertone of kindness that melted away some of his tension. Perhaps sharing this part of himself wouldn't be the disaster he feared. Would she truly understand? William took a moment to let her encouragement settle into his bones. The next hours became a blizzard of activity as he prepared for her visit. He cleaned up the studio, assuring it resembled more than just a chaotic nest of artistic fervor. Each item he placed in its proper place became a metaphor for the order he desperately sought within himself. With each sweep, every collected brush, he attempted to align his inner turmoil. Preparing a pot of coffee, he resorted to calm breathing exercises, grounding himself in the simplicity of the act. Did he want to impress her? Or was this about revealing who he truly was? The simplicity of the coffee machine churning was juxtaposed against the complexity of his emotional landscape. The door creaked, and there she was, bright eyes and an easy smile that felt reassuring amidst the storm churning within him. Sarah stood almost as a bridge between who he had been and who he aspired to become. "Wow," she said as she surveyed the studio, her gaze falling upon the canvas. "This is incredible. I can feel so much energy coming from it." Her enthusiasm flooded through him, reigniting that flicker of joy he had felt while painting. But as she stepped closer to inspect the work, a wave of intimidation washed over him. He hadn't just painted colors, he painted pain, longing, a tempest of self-discovery. What if she delved too deep, glimpsing the shadows he'd rather keep hidden? What does it mean? Sarah asked gently, eyes still fixed on the painting. That question echoed like thunder in his mind, and for a moment, he hesitated. He could gloss over it, cover the emotional turmoil behind generalized terms about love or loss. Or he could confront the depths of his soul and share the rawest pieces of himself. Taking a deep breath, he faced her, his voice laced with uncertainty. It's about reclaiming myself. It's chaotic like my journey, maybe even too real in its honesty. Her expression shifted, eyebrows raised in curiosity. That's beautiful, William. Capturing the chaos is as important as the beauty. With her words, he felt the walls in him begin to crumble. Maybe sharing this raw vulnerability wouldn't lead to dismissal or pity. He could find strength in transparency, and perhaps it could even redefine his relationship with his artistic identity. However, the stakes escalated when he remembered the upcoming exhibit, a showcase from a collective of emerging artists. The thought struck him like a bolt of lightning. Was he ready to present this part of himself to the world? How would he balance honesty with the inevitability of criticism? As they spoke, his mind raced between that decision and the revelations happening right in front of him. Could he expose not just his artwork, but his worthy self to an audience of critics? The moment lingered, charged with potential. There would be no turning back, only the murmur of encouragement from Sarah washing over him, pushing him toward the unknown, and as they stood together in his creative sanctuary, he faced the most compelling challenge of all. Would he be brave enough to take that leap into public vulnerability that awaited him? What would happen when the world bore witness to William's true self? The ache for authenticity clawed at his insides, demanding to be set free. With each passing moment with Sarah, the urgency of that decision tightened its grip on his heart. Would he seize the opportunity, or would he retreat back into the shadows? The brush in his hand trembled with unresolved potential, yearning for clarity. The warmth of Sarah's presence lingered in the studio, her words echoing like a distant bell ringing in his mind. William stood somewhat frozen, caught in the stillness, separated from the vibrant chaos of his canvas. He could sense her encouragement, yet the weight of the upcoming exhibit wrapped around him like a heavy shroud, constricting his breath. Meeting her gaze felt more vulnerable than painting itself. In that moment, he recognized an unsettling truth: the people around him would soon interpret the reality he painted, each stroke a testament to his journey that had often felt solitary. Was he truly ready to share this chaotic honesty with an audience far removed from the safety of his studio? William? Sarah's voice cut through his reverie, the lilt of concern mingling with curiosity. Is everything all right? Yes, he replied, almost too quickly. I'm just thinking. The truth was he was unearthing everything at once. The fear of criticism, the longing for connection, the pressing need to justify each stroke of his brush. I understand, she said softly, stepping closer as if to bridge the gap formed by his uncertainty. It's a huge step. Art is about more than what's on the canvas, it's about what's in here. She placed a hand over her heart, and he felt a pang of recognition. Her sincerity sparked something deep within him, igniting a flicker of resolve against the gale of self-doubt. His mind clicked into place, clarity cutting through the fog. I want to be honest. I want to show my truth. The words rolled off his tongue as if freeing a long-enslaved thought. But what if they don't see it? What if they misunderstand? Sarah's expression softened, a reassuring smile cascading over her features. They might, but that doesn't diminish your experience. Your truth belongs to you, and you get to define it. That thought played over in William's mind like a mantra: his truth belonged to him. Yet, the thought of unveiling his depths to critics, to strangers armed with judgment and cynicism, sent a shiver along his spine. Could he truly harness the courage to step outside of his self-protective boundaries? The silence enveloped them as Sarah observed him, the vibrant colors of the painting reflecting in her eyes. Suddenly, he felt as though the canvas was trembling, the entire studio holding its breath in anticipation of his next move. Let's just take it one step at a time, Sarah suggested, as if reading his unspoken fears. You don't have to lay bare every piece of yourself right away. Start with this talk, share with the people you feel most comfortable with, and let them help you prepare for the exhibit. A voice inside him insisted that he should take a leap, fill the silence with boldness rather than lingering doubts. But what if I fail? What if no one connects with my work? Then you learn, she replied, unwavering in her support. But if you never try, you'll never know what you are capable of. Sometimes, it takes courage to risk the things we care about the most. The simplicity of her words anchored his swirling thoughts. Courage, an elusive quality he had doubted resided in him. But as he glanced at the painting, he understood that refusing to share would be a far greater failure than exposing himself to criticism. Maybe I'm more afraid of showing the real me than the art, he admitted, his voice low. I've spent so long hiding behind my canvas. Isn't it time to step out from behind it? She asked gently, her eyes shimmering like the colors of the painting. With a sudden rush of clarity, William felt an awakening in his chest. Could he truly allow himself to be seen, to allow not just the strokes of paint but his very essence to shine through for others? The swirl of excitement battling against fear informed his decision. All right, he said slowly, resolutely. I'll prepare for the exhibit. I'll find a way to communicate my truth. And just like that, an unthinkable shift occurred within him. The pain and joy that had dictated his painting no longer seemed like burdens, rather, they were his birthright to share. As Sarah clapped her hands together, her enthusiasm infectious, he felt akin to an artist on the brink of unveiling his magnum opus. However, the thrill of commitment came with its own tremors of doubt. The upcoming exhibit loomed larger than his previous jitters had allowed him to recognize. What if his truth misfired in the eyes of the audience? The chill of uncertainty returned, whispering doubts of potential failure. Yet William resolved to confront that fear head-on. As the evening wore on, determination sparked along with his newfound sense of purpose. If reclaiming himself meant opening up to this world, he was ready to spill forth the deepest shades of his journey through the language of art. But what other revelations would come to light as he prepped for the exhibit? With every thoughtful brushstroke, the risk remained. A looming exploration of his story lay before him, ripe for the world to see. The real question lingered. Would he embrace the chaotic beauty within or allow uncertainty to shadow his spirit yet again? In the weeks that followed, the reveal of William's painting at the exhibit transformed his perspective in profound ways. The opening night approached with a mix of exhilaration and trepidation, filled with the looming specter of vulnerability. William stood before the canvas, each brushstroke now a testament to his wounded journey, a tapestry of emotion captured in vibrant hues. As he welcomed guests into the gallery, an unfamiliar surge of confidence coursed through him. No longer shrouded in the fear of judgment, he found strength in vulnerability, seeing his work as a reflection of authenticity rather than a metric of success. Attendees approached the painting with awe, their interactions igniting a flame of pride in him. Their interpretations resonated, weaving connections between his struggles and their own. William, this piece is powerful. A woman exclaimed, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. It's as if you've captured the chaos of life itself. Each comment chipped away at the icy remnants of doubt that had gripped him for so long. The realization washed over him. His courage resonated beyond his individual experience, creating a ripple effect in others' lives. As the night progressed, he spotted Sarah in the crowd, her presence illuminating the room. She approached him, her smile warm and affirming. You did it, she beamed, you took a huge step into authenticity. Seeing her proud gaze fueled William's determination, validating the journey he had embarked upon. Art had become a conduit for heartfelt connection, and he understood now that success was not merely defined by accolades but by honest communication of the soul. Reveling in this acknowledgement, William was pummeled by a wave of realization. He had grown beyond his past insecurities. Once trapped in a cycle of achievement, he had unearthed a deeper truth, taking ownership of both his artistry and his life. Each person he spoke with felt genuine, interested in the rawness of his experience rather than the polished veneer he had once displayed. Thank you for believing in me, he told Sarah, his voice steady. Without you, I might have remained locked in isolation. She smiled back, the gratitude shimmering between them. Their bond had transformed into something meaningful, rooted in the depth of understanding and mutual respect. The very next day, he met with an art critic from a local magazine, who expressed interest in writing a feature on him. As they sat together discussing his work, William articulated the story behind his art, the frustrations, the triumphs, and the unrelenting pursuit of authenticity. He felt the words flow easily, no longer burdened by the need to impress. Your journey is inspiring, said the critic, jotting notes enthusiastically. People need to hear this story. You are more than a businessman, you are an artist redefining success. With this statement, William's past parameters shifted dramatically. Success was now interwoven with the act of sharing oneself authentically, both on canvas and in life. With the article's publication, accolades trickled in, but this time they felt earned, not hollow. He found himself invited to collaborate with community art programs, extending the very vulnerability that once paralyzed him. In giving back, he uncovered joy in nurturing others' creativity, bringing together forgotten parts of himself that had long been stifled. One evening, as he stood on his terrace overlooking the cityscape, an overwhelming sense of fulfillment settled over him. The glamorous mansion once felt like a gilded cage, but now it echoed with laughter, a testament to the newfound connections he had fostered. The isolation that had plagued him melted away, replaced by a sense of belonging. William had proven to himself not only the power of achievement through recognition but also the sanctity of emotional courage. He had solidified his place not just as a businessman but as an artisan who transformed pain into beauty. His identity had shifted. He was no longer just a tech mogul, he was a flourishing storyteller capable of touching lives through art and vulnerability. In that moment, as the setting sun painted the sky with hues of deep orange, he smiled, filled with the knowledge that he had liberated himself from the shackles of his past. No longer living in the shadows, William embraced his journey, his heart now open to love, connection, and the potentially uncharted paths leading into the future. And with that, he wrote a message to Sarah, inviting her to collaborate as they blended their passions into something beautiful together. It was a profound step toward a partnership rooted in honesty. He was ready to embrace the next chapter of his life, where love awaited to flourish beyond the lens of what was deemed as expected. He had chosen authenticity, and now, the world felt ripe for exploration. Now is your moment to show your support. You need to subscribe immediately to this channel for more exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like right now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Let your voice be heard. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion.